Hi, Lee.
Hi.
This is Phyllis. Can you hear me?
Sorry, who is this?
This is Phyllis.
Oh, hi, Phyllis. You
Hi.
know, we probably don't need to be recording until a minute or two before 4 o'clock.
Okay, do you want me to, are you able to log in and run the meeting?
If you make me host, I will run the meeting.
Okay, so let's see, how do I do that?
I'm not sure.
Should we just both log out and then you log in again?
I can do that, or somewhere you should be able to just pass host to me.
I don't see where, make host. There you go.
Good, okay. And now I am, okay, Alan, why don't you do that again?
Okay. All right, I call a meeting of the Roads and Right-of-Way Committee to order for March 15th, 2022. I declare we have a quorum present, and let's get right to the, before we get to the agenda, you may be familiar with this book. This is a book that the Roads and Right-of-Way Committee published a while ago. It was written by Fran Cartman. It's called Ways Offshore. It is available on Amazon, according to Fran, still. Unfortunately, whoever put it together for us, we don't have access, so we can't get them at the wholesale price. And we've been trying to track that down. Anyway, it's a pretty interesting booklet. It's a history of roads and ways on the island, and it gives a lot of interesting background about, going starting from the Indian trails, or I should say the Native American trails, and up through the modern day. So if you haven't seen this, as I say, I'm been trying to locate whoever has the key to get in so we can get the wholesale copies, but
it may have been Ken Blackshaw, but I'm not sure.
I checked with Ken, and Ken said he had, he did not have it. John Stackpole was the one who funded the publication of the book through Harbor Fuel. And I talked with John. He looked through his records and couldn't find anything. So we're at a dead end there. Anyway, it is available on Amazon. I do have 1 or 2 extra copies if anyone would like to borrow one to take a look at it. So,
Alan, before you get going,
yes, Lee.
May I ask the person who signed on as Mo who you are?
Alan, I thought that book was required reading for the Roads and Right-of-Way Committee.
Well, it was. That's why we published it. It might be.
Join.
Yeah, well, as I say, we've been trying to track down who has, there's a certain code you need to do to get into Kindle to order the author copies of them. But nobody seems to have that code. Lee, in answer to your question, I think Mo might be from the DPW. I'm not sure, but
unmuted. Is this Richard Mo Moore? His camera is off.
And apparently the volume too. So
then the same question about town committee. What does that one stand for?
Phyllis Ruguaro, DPW.
Exactly. Yeah, that's
Thank you.
Phyllis. And okay, let's get on with the meeting here. I see no public comment. So we'll go on to approval of the minutes from our February 15th meeting. Anyone notice any errors, omissions, corrections?
I have to abstain because I was not at the meeting.
Oh, okay. I would entertain a motion then to approve the minutes. Okay, Bill, a motion and a second.
Second,
Okay, thanks, Rick. All in
Hello?
fa-
Hi, Alan, sorry to interrupt. I wanted to let you know Richard Moore is on the call, but he's trying to fix his microphone. So he's
Okay,
gonna join shortly.
Okay,
excellent.
Phyllis, thank you. That helps us out.
Yeah, thank you, Phyllis. I appreciate it. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor of minutes?
Now, we're going to do it by roll call.
Roll call. Okay, Lee?
Aye.
Let's see.
You've got a lot of people here. You may as well call the whole committee.
Yeah, I know,
Aye.
I am. I'm going, my list is sideways here. So Phil?
Abstain?
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Bill?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
Snooky?
Aye.
Rick?
aye.
And Rob?
Well,
And great, okay, that minutes. Ken Bogran cannot meet with us. He has another meeting this afternoon, so he did not have any updates on any of the program, any of the projects that he's working on. So, yes, Ed?
Alan, did anyone get in touch with Patrick Reed by any chance? The new transportation planner?
No,
Is he on board yet or not?
that I'm not sure.
'Cause that was on our agenda to get in touch with him or something.
Okay, hang in there, everybody. We've been joined by Nate Porter and Steve Arsenault. Steve may know whether the planner is here.
Whether the who is here? The
The-
planner?
Yeah.
Transportation planner.
I can neither confirm nor deny. No, we have I've heard we have a planner, but actually I don't know the person's name yet. But yeah, I was told we do have a planner.
Okay. I think
Yeah, I've inquired also, and apparently he hasn't started yet, or at least on an official basis. He is going to be working remotely, and he'll be coming back and forth, that sort of thing. So we'll see how that works. Okay, so we have the minutes approved. We have Ken Bogran not here. Okay, the map project. We had a subcommittee meeting a while back, and we had Nathan and Phil. Lee, you were there too, right?
I believe I was.
Yeah, and so long ago, I forget how.
it was February 18th, Alan, and you were also there.
Yeah, I was there. Was there anyone else, Phil?
No,
Okay. So we had a discussion about how do we go forward with this map project. And at the end of that meeting, in my notes from the meeting, there are a couple of things I wanted to clarify. First of all, what's the product we want to end up with as far as this map project, presumably a map of some sort. And the other thing is that, let me just check my note here. Why are we, what's the result that we're looking for as far as this whole project is concerned? And in the course of that meeting, we identified 5 different categories of public access. And those include the one big beach easements that don't all those don't necessarily have an access to go with them, but that would be one place where there are beach access points. The emergency access map that when you go around on the beaches, you'll see this is whatever the number is. There are 52 beach access points around the island. And so that's the second category of beach access. The third category was were the right-of-way monument locations. And we have a record of most
34.
of those. We don't have all of those in yet. The fourth would be the Chapter 91 licenses where public access is required by the license. And then there are private access points. These would either be in somebody's backyard on private property, or of course, the different conservation properties are also private properties, but they do all of them are required to provide public access. So those are the public access points. So the question then is, as far as how do we take this program forward? The first thing to do, I think, is to collect the points that are listed on those 5 different categories of public access that you just mentioned. So I have lists of some of them. I was going to get a map out and put a star and check off around the, around the island where they were, but that I didn't have a really decent map, and the one that I had just that just didn't work. So Phil's suggestion was that we need to go out and ground truth these locations. And once we have an accurate list of where these locations are, to go out, check them out. Now, the public access points where we have the monuments we do have listed. We do have some other monuments to locate. So we'll have to add those to our list. So as far as a way forward, Nathan, do you have any, given what it is we're trying to do, to create a map that will show the, beach access points around, I'm sorry, it's not just the beaches, but also the ponds and so on, to show those access points, are we, what scale map are we talking about? Is this something we can get on a normal sheet of paper, or is this something that we need to go big on?
Given that pretty much everything's going to be on the perimeter of the island, any sort of one-page letter size map is going to be fairly crowded,
Right.
especially when you start trying to label everything. I would say probably the easiest thing to do, or the most accessible thing to do, was once we have everything put together on the GIS website for the town, we can put those in. There is a cost associated with adding it. It's basically, they call all these different layers themes. So anytime you want to add a new theme on the website, it's a $500 fee, just basically for the processing, because of the way the maps are set up and scaled. They're pre-rendered as tiles. So depending on how close you zoom into the data, the more tiles there are. I think our website has 1 million or 1.5 million tiles altogether. So that $500 processing fee is basically to pre-render all those images with the data on them. But like I said, that's probably the most accessible way. So if somebody wanted to zoom in and see where different access points were, they could, traverse the island and zoom in and get a pretty accurate location off them. We can, like I said, we can certainly do a printed map. It's probably going to be best to be done in a series. Maybe divide the island into thirds, maybe even do 4 or 5 separate maps. So you'd have like the west end, the north central around the harbor and Brant Point, south central down by Surfside, and then, you know, break up the eastern side of the island into a couple of different maps as well, just so that it's not quite as busy. But I figure that's probably the best way to get them displayed.
Yes, Ed?
What about ultimately trying to go to something like the, you know, the map that the foundation puts out, something like that, that folds out. In other words, you can accordion it out. I mean, it becomes a big map from a small map.
Right.
And it has, you know, like Nathan was saying, you might concentrate on areas that intensive areas of access where there's a lot of accesses in one spot, and in like little, you know, quarter panels up in the corner or something like that, or, you know, whatever you had to do that way. You know, it'd be nice for the public to be able to carry it, to ultimately get to where they can actually get a map like this at the information center or wherever and proceed.
Alan, I like the idea of going into GIS. That gives us one platform with multiple layers, multiple themes, selectable by the person using it. And the critical part is that it's easy to zoom. You don't have to jump around, just use your mouse and wheel to enlarge or to shrink to a particular area. So Nate, you led with that, and then you said, but we could also break it up into segments. GIS lends itself to the segments. And by the way, that was my comment. Alan, I'm going to go off. There are other people raising their hand, but I will note that Nat Lowell's on board, Richard Moore's on, and there are several others. We know that Steve Arsenault is here. You've got pretty darn nearly a full attendance.
Right. Okay, Phil?
My thought was maybe in this to explore the possibility of getting an app and having this on an app on a phone. I mean, everything is on a phone nowadays. I don't think it's particularly productive to try to print something out. And maybe what you do is you have an app with 5 different layers, so you're not, you know, and you would have to explain what the different layers are, but you would have something on your phone so that if you're, you know, if people are out about on the island and they're saying, hey, you know, where can we legally go without being hassled to get to a beach point, you just pull it up on your phone. And I really don't think, I mean, God knows there are literally millions of apps. I really don't think it would be a huge thing for us to do something like that with the Apple Store.
Phil and Alan, I'm butting in, I realize that, but it's a good idea, particularly for hikers and walkers who can carry a phone, but not necessarily an iPad or a laptop. And so Nate, at the appropriate time, if it goes into GIS, does GIS have the facility to download to a phone?
I know at first on the GIS website, there was some issues with it trying to translate into mobile devices. I think that's roughly been fixed, but it is more set up for at least a tablet, if not a full-on desktop. I don't know how actually useful it is on a small device like a phone. It can certainly be done, not by me, unfortunately. I'd be making a lot of money on the side if I could. But I'm happy to provide base data and the layers to, you know, if there's a developer you guys wind up going with, I'm happy to provide the data for it. That's kind of why I'm here. And as to Ed's point with the map, also not a bad idea, you know, to have a portable something that you could stick in the pocket and just fold up. Just with that, it would require someone with more of a graphic design background than I have. Again, happy to provide the layers, but like the Young's bike map, which I think is gorgeous. that's a little beyond the mapping software's capability. That's more of a graphic design type of software.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, yeah, those are good points. And of course, that raises the question, who are we doing this for? Originally, when thinking about this project, I was thinking of just getting the database together through the GIS department so that there is a record of where these public access points are. Remember when we began this project some 20 years ago? Anyway, however long ago it was when we started this project, the idea was to locate public access points on the island and put a monument in the ground, a granite monument in the ground. And so that all came from the concern that these were getting lost, that owners were trying to block them off, they're letting them grow in, they're putting up private signs and all that sort of thing. And that's the problem we were trying to address initially with the granite public way monuments. And as I say, at this point, we have put in 36 of the upright ones, and I believe half a dozen or so of the flush ones around the island. And we have a pretty much complete record of where those are located. We still have to go around and finish that part of the project up. We do have additional posts, the granite markers, and we also have some flush ones that we can use for additional locations. So again, back to the original question of the map. What's the purpose of the map? And I think that once we get a GIS base map that has the data on it, at that point, we can figure out what we want to do, whether we want to publish a map about it. I know in my own experience going around the island with different maps and so on, there are certain shortcomings. I guess there are shortcomings really for any map. You know, it depends on how much information you're trying to put on it, and that brings us back to the purpose of the map itself. So yes, Bill?
It would seem to me that we would chug along and get it so that the GIS has it as a point of record. And then the second phase would be, okay, how do we get this information to be more usable? And I think that's where I really like the idea of it being accessible from a handheld device, an app that would have location services on it, so you could see where you were in relation to what you're looking at. So there's nothing worse than having, like going on the GIS now through the internet, and then say, okay, I got to zoom in and find a street that's near where I am and try to figure out where the hell I am. So, but I think the first step is we got to complete this, what was thought to be a short-term project, and get a finished assembly of the information.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's becoming clearer and clearer that that's the focus we need to start on. Yes, Ed.
I think everyone's correct. I think we need to start with Nathan's work in the GIS, but I think it's also good to not only have the app, and apps are the way of the future, and they're easy, and everybody has a handheld, but sometimes there's still a lot of old school people that are hikers and things like that might find a map more comprehensive, an overview, especially if you're not carrying a tablet with you, along something bigger with the look at. So and the people to use this, I mean, this could be from governmental to emergency act, management to, tourists to whatever. I mean, or just random local people here on the island that for years have used the path, not known the path was even public perhaps. So I think there's a plethora of people that would use this, but I guess what would be our primary focus? Are we really primarily focusing the person who wants to know where they can go to the beach?
Right. And again, as far as the purpose, in my mind, the whole purpose of this project is to get these recorded on some permanent database so that 20 years from now, if somebody's looking to say, hey, where are these public access, they wouldn't have to go through some of the challenges that we went through early on, trying to figure out which ones had been taken by the town, which ones hadn't been taken, and that sort of thing. Yes, Lee?
It sounds to me like we're converging on an action. And so I'm going to suggest, Alan, that we figure out how to find $500 and get Nathan to start creating the GIS layer.
Well, we already have a basic start from the maps that Nathan distributed to us a month or so ago.
Yeah, no, I understand that. And that's why I'm saying that really the very next action is to bring these together into our water access map. And if I understand Nathan, he needs $500.
It was for me, but not for me.
Yeah,
No,
no,
I
right,
understand.
exactly.
And the reality is that we go to the town and we say, can we do a transfer?
Right, yeah, as far as the money, we can, we'll find a way to get that.
I think so.
That sort of thing. I think that the first thing though, Nathan, what do you need from us in terms of data to put on? I assume you're working from a big map somewhere, and you have all these points around the island. Is that?
Yeah. So, given the different layers that you were speaking of, those 5 different layers.
Yeah.
Public way markers that Lee sent me the PDF of that is posted online. I have all 36 of those. They included a lat long, so I was able to hunt each of those down. And of course, we have the emergency access, the beach access points from the fire department. Now, for those, you were talking earlier about sort of the land bank and other conservation groups access points. Some of those are on their property. The fire department doesn't necessarily break them out by who the owner is, but some of those points are on there. If they have any of their own or any internal ones, like you were saying for ponds, if I can get a list of those from the different groups, or even if they, like I said, even just confirmation, do you have, yes or no, do you have some? And if you do, can I get some, access to them? The one big beach map, I have a layer, I believe that according to what I had on the title was updated as of 2020. The only other thing is some of those chapter 91 properties. Most of them were pretty easy to hunt down. There were perhaps a dozen that were listing just an area in the harbor itself, without any real specification of what area they were talking about. So I don't know how important those are because they were in the harbor, but I would need someone to sort of go through and define the area for me so I could sketch it out. But most of the ones that were associated with actual map and parcel numbers and addresses on shore, I did get those in. So then from that, I guess the question would be, do we keep them as separate layers to be added, or do we combine them and just mark them as, I can transfer the different attributes from the different data layers into one massive table. So beach access would have its attributes filled out, but none of the others, versus public way markers would have its attributes filled out, but not the beach access markers, because they would have different attribute fields. But basically I could identify one major field would be which layers is coming from: beach access, public ways, chapter 91, and then the table will be filled out. And then that way I can use that attribute to break them out and make them distinguishable from each other. So when you looked on the map, it'd be, sake of argument, a red triangle for beach access points, a blue square for chapter 91 properties, a green pentagon for public way markers, just something so that they can differentiate what layer, what data layer each of those came from. But and then that way we're only adding, like I said, we're only adding the single layer to the GIS map, just with those separate distinctions.
Okay, and you already have some of those layers, right? You have the emergency layer and you have a,
Yeah, so the emergency access, the beach access layers is all done. The public way markers, like I said, is all done. Chapter 91 is done, except for those few that were pretty vague. The one big beach map is all done. It would really be just land bank and the different conservation groups. If they have some kind of internal record, or even, land bank probably has their own GIS points for it, of any markers or public access points that they define. If I could get a hold of those, again, some of them may be already on the beach access map. But like I said, anything internal, I don't think I really have. There's also, along with the beach access points, there's a harbor access layer I have. I think it's only about half a dozen spots on the inner harbor. But for the most part, all the data is collected. Like I said, it's really just those sort of the private conservation groups. If they have any data that I can get a hold of and either create a layer from, or just take the layer that they have and incorporate it into the map.
Alan, I'm going to suggest that if you can touch base with the NGOs, the non-government organizations, our charitable groups, I could work with Nate and Jeff Carlson for the few chapter 91 points to try and locate them on a map, and then use Google Map or something to get lat-long coordinates, address and lat-long coordinates.
Nathan, is that the kind of information you need, the longitude and latitude, or how do you, what kind of information do you need as far as these points?
Mostly for the 91s, it was just listed by a property. So I sort of tagged the center point of whatever shape the parcel happened to be in.
Right.
Or, they listed like a breakwater that they were putting in, or a jetty, or things like that. So I'd actually put the point for the information actually on the feature if I could find it. Like I said, the ones that I'm missing are just sort of, the record was a spot. It was really kind of offshore. So I don't know how helpful even the ones I didn't get are going to be, because they weren't on land as access to the water. It was somebody working on stuff like down by Strait Wharf and things like that. So it was areas working on the actual docks and piers themselves. So again, we can certainly take a look, and if I can just get somewhere close to just drop a pin in just to mark it.
Map and ID or something more specific?
Well, that's the thing. They were offshore, so they didn't have a map and ID, map and lot number associated with them. Because if they had that, that's the easiest way for me to hunt it down, is just whip up the map or some address that I can then convert to a map and lot number with the assessor data or the online GIS. But like I said, these ones were sort of nebulous offshore, not tagged to a specific address. Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Well, what I was going to say, Nate, is we don't have to have 100% of all the data to proceed. And it sounds to me like we've got 90 to 95% of what we need. And while you're assembling this, Alan and I can go and try and fill in the gaps.
Yep. And might hold off just until we get some sort of idea of if some of the NGOs have access points and how much they may be. Just again, because if I'm going to create one giant layer with all of these in, if I have data layers from them with any attributes that they collect, then I can just incorporate that into the table when I set the entire overarching layer up. Doing it afterwards is possible. It's just a little more difficult. But once I have that, and based on the existing data I have, we can put that up on the website, and then any edits that need to be added, deleted, changed, that's a simple thing I can do from my desktop, update the website, and there's, we can monkey around with it as much as we need to.
Right, okay. I know the conservation groups do have detailed maps, certainly the Land Bank, the Conservation Foundation, Mass Audubon, and out at Great Point, trustees of reservations. They all publish maps. The foundation, of course, has their Act Trails map, and that's sort of still a work in progress, but it's definitely coming along. All right, so it sounds as though if the purpose of this whole project is to develop a definitive map as of whatever the date is now, because we know these are going to be changing with sea level rise and so on, to develop a definitive map of these access points around the island. Once we have these data layers and can stack them on top of each other, then we can decide whether to put it on an app on the phone, whether to do a printed map of it, depending on what we're aiming for. Okay, so it sounds like, yes, Lee?
Just something to think about, because it's not really germane to this particular item, but we've been talking about letting people find the Nantucket Railway. And if we have something that works on a phone, we could put up little signs at access points to the railroad with a little QR code, and they could get information. It's subject for another agenda item, but moving toward the phones and either a QR code or other way of accessing it would help us on several fronts.
Exactly. And the Conservation Foundation already has maps for most of their individual properties. The Land Bank is currently working on doing the same thing for their properties. Each one will have a trailhead, basically a small parking area, and then a link to the maps or the trails that are in that property. But again, once we get the basic map done, once we get the data that we want to include, two things will happen. First of all, there'll be a permanent record. Well, there'll be a record of these access points as of whatever the publication date of this map when it comes together. And this, as I say, initially this was something of value to the town, because the town would then have this data, which they already have access to, but there's no, at least as far as I'm aware, there's no map that shows this data all together in one place. And that's what we're aiming for here. Yes, Lee?
As we move forward, we need to talk to Janet Schulte in Culture and Tourism to gain her support, because I'm sure that for that element for those who would use the map, the element of tourists and beachgoers and holidaymakers are very important to her group.
True, although each of the individual groups publishes their own map emphasizing the things that they want to emphasize. Like, for example, the cultural district. When the cultural district, they have a map of different locations around the island and
Yeah.
so on.
So I've got two reactions, Alan. Yes, we're not trying to displace what they do, but we provide them with another handy guide to visitors, for visitors to Nantucket. And at the same time, we show them, we lead the way on how you can make an app for your maps, not just our map, your maps. But here's the platform and here's how it works.
Yeah, Phil?
I think we have a window of opportunity in the next 2 months before we get into the summer. We're members of this committee and we could whack it up. There are 34, we have a document dated June 2012 of 34 monuments for our committee. Now, you mentioned, Alan, that there's 6 or 7 or whatever, but we've got 34 monuments in this document with a picture of and the location and everything. And I think a piece of work could be to go and confirm that these monuments do in fact still exist 10 years later at these 34 locations and get this cleaned up.
Okay, that's a good point. By the way, I do, I'm out on the properties all the time, and I, particularly with the public way monuments, the things that we put in, whenever I'm out and about, I always, make sure I can find those posts that we put in the ground, the granite markers, and so. Getting back to the original point, the ground truthing part of it, to go out and verify. All right, how about next week? Let me put together a group of people who'd be interested in going around and checking out things. We'll start with the public way monuments, where they are around the island and that sort of thing. We also, in addition to those 34 that are on the map that Phil referred to, we did put in some additional ones subsequent to that work. Most of those were either, I think most of them were the flush monuments. At Sconset and at Hobart Avenue.
Well, I think what we would do is update, this is the thing that we have of the 34, I don't know if you can see it, but anyhow, I think what we're saying is let's add the 6, the 6 or whatever it is, so that we have a document that's dated, June 2022.
Exactly.
And I would also submit that we have a current picture too.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, the picture, the pictures, and all the work that Lee did as far as getting the not only the GIS coordinates, but the longitude and latitude and a brief description. Yeah, I think that it's definitely that should be the next step for the remainder.
Does everyone know this document I'm referring to that's dated June 2012?
I'm sorry, say that
Does
again.
everyone on the committee know what I'm referring to, or should we send it around again? This was dated June 2012, and it has a picture, coordinates, parcel, street location, description, and it's about 10 pages double-sided.
Phil, it's on the website. If you go to the committee website, it's on the website.
Okay.
And I'll double check that the latest version is there.
Okay.
All right. Let's pick a day next week for anyone who is interested to go around and I guess take a look and verify that these they're still there. I guess that's what we're about here. And then we can add in whatever ones do not appear on that initial list of 34. And
Okay,
all right.
Alan, I'm gonna propel us forward. I'm gonna suggest
Thank you.
that everything that you're talking about, we need to do. But I think we need to authorize Nate to get started on putting this stuff into GIS. And that means a motion before our committee to authorize Nate to get going, and then a search for the $500.
Well, I think Nathan already has much of this information, right? You're
Right now, it's to move forward into the creation of a GIS layer.
Yeah, so what I have basically is all those are separate layers. So if I merge them all basically into one layer with a field to differentiate where the data comes from, be it public markers layer, the Chapter 91 layer, things like that, merge basically the attributes that go with each of those into one giant table for combining all of these layers, then it'll be ready to upload onto the website and can be edited from there. Like I said, the only thing would be at least a quick check of the conservation and land bank groups, just to see if I can get some of their data so that I can include their attributes. Like I said, I can add them later on. It's just easier if I have them up front.
okay.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I can get data from the conservation groups. I'm just trying to think of, yeah.
I can email over to the land bank and see what they have too.
Mhm.
Yeah, Alan, I hear Nate saying that what he would work with best is a list rather than a map.
Right. Is that correct, Nathan?
Ideally, like I know land bank has their own GIS files. So like for them, they'll probably just send me a copy of whatever layer they have. And then I can just merge that with the existing, with all these other data layers. Yeah, maps work. It's not going to be super accurate because it's going to be me sort of zooming in and trying to match what they have on whatever map they have. So I may be off by a couple of feet, but you know, that's probably not going to be terribly important. We're not talking survey quality stuff here. But you know, I'll take whatever they have and work with it, you know.
Good.
Okay.
Alan, do you need some kind of formal action, or are we rolling?
I think we're rolling. I think, you know, this has been very helpful this afternoon to sort of get a little clearer vision of where we're going with this map. Again, as I said before, I think the key is to get all the data that we're looking for together and to get it on a GIS layer. And then from that point, we can determine what use we want to make of the, you know, whether we want to publish a map, whether we want to, you know, what we want to do with it. But the most important thing, of course, is for the historical record, so that we have a record of where these public access points are for, you know, for the future. Yeah, Bill?
I have to head off island on Tuesday for a week, but between now and then, I don't know if you want to toss out some assignments or whatever, but I'd be happy to go start whittling down verification, you know, by assignment, verify Latin long and take a picture or whatever. So I don't know who else is available or what their schedule is, but I could put in some hours between now and then. I'm going to be unavailable Tuesday on for a week, but
We have a
Okay.
bunch out on the west end of the island, Bill.
You could be our guide for the West End.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Okay, Bill, we'll take you up on that. I will certainly volunteer to go out and participate. And anyone else interested in Phil? Okay, great. And Ed?
Yeah,
Excellent.
and I'm there, Alan.
Good. And Snooky News, whenever I have a question about Wisconsin or public
The
way
East
or
End.
whatever. Good. All right. Let me get some names down here, Bill. Ed, Snooky. Okay, great. What's the best way to go about doing this? You want to do it as, individuals, or you want to get together, 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever, and do these? A lot of this stuff you can be done individually, because I'm
I
just
think
trying
there ought to be more than just one person, Alan.
Yeah, 2 people.
I'm sorry, Phil.
I think there ought to be more than just one person.
Groups of 2?
Yeah,
2 or more, yeah.
Okay, all right. All right, do you want to set a date and time? It's always a risky thing with town meeting coming up, but
Alan, I'm going to suggest that your calendar is probably the most crowded of all of us. If you work around your calendar and nominate a few days and then send an email, who can come on next Wednesday, which I believe you and I don't have a meeting, or next Thursday or next Friday, and go from there. By next, I don't mean tomorrow, I mean the week from tomorrow.
right, yeah. Okay, that would work. I certainly don't think I have the busiest schedule of looking around at all the people that are that are here. So, but nonetheless, yeah. All right, I'll do that then. I'll take a look at my calendar, see what days work for me, and then I'll put it out as an email and see. We should probably take it area by area too. We'll do the West End, we'll do the South Shore, we'll do the harbor, and go around, maybe a different time for each one. Yes, Ed?
Yes, I think you find a starting point and kind of go in some revolution around it, and rather than scattershot it, perhaps, unless you're starting groups on one. I mean, the different groups could start in different areas and move, some logical fashion. And the days are longer now with the later sunset. So those of us who don't eat dinner at 6 o'clock perhaps can put in some after hours work, so to speak.
So you're a Spaniard with your 10 o'clock dinner.
9 o'clock. Not quite 10. 8 o'clock in the wintertime.
Good. All right, so then, just so I'm clear, I'll send out an email with some suggested days. I'll put it out to the whole committee. And then the 4 or 5 of us that want to go out and take a look at and verify them. All right. Let's see if there's anything else I wanted to do. All right, sounds like we have a plan. We have a result that we want to aim for. Great. Okay, anything else on the map project? So that takes care of 4 and 5. The Greenway and Trail System project update. The land bank is working to get a map together of the various trails on their property. And as I said earlier, they're working on identifying, we've named the individual properties around, like the foundation, for example, they have Squam Swamp, Squam Farm, Masquatuck, et cetera, et cetera. They have each property has a name to it. There's a parking area for that. And they're working on a trail system for each one of those areas. The land bank is in the process of doing the same thing. We've named most of our properties, and we're going to be doing that same thing. So as far as that project, the trail map project, which I see as sort of a separate project from the map that we've been talking about. These will probably be individual organizations would be publishing maps of their own properties, as the Conservation Foundation already does. The land bank does this to a certain extent, and I think those groups are also picking up trail systems on other properties. So that was another item on our to-do list. The Greenway Trail System, that getting those maps together. So again, those are separate maps. Those are trail maps that we're talking about there. So that's all underway. As far as the Chapter 91 update, yes, Lee?
Alan, you and I were both on the Civic League Executive Committee Board of Directors meeting, at which Jeff Carlson made a presentation, and he touched on Chapter 91 in that presentation, if you recall.
I do. I do recall. And yeah, so yeah, in fact, I emailed Jeff earlier this afternoon.
He was uncertain about attending. It's pretty clear
I know.
he knows not to attend.
Yeah, no, well, it's, it was kind of last minute that, he got notified. So anyway, Jeff has been, Jeff can be very helpful on this, this part of it. And as he expressed at the Civic League event the other day, he's certainly willing to participate and work with the Civic League, or work with, I guess in our case, the Roads and Right-of-Way Committee, as to identifying where these Chapter 91 licenses are. It's amazing to me. I've asked town for street maps that are up to date, which public roads and private roads. And we've gone through this. We've had a number of people before our committee coming in to ask, is this a public or a private way? We're narrowing it down. We have a relatively accurate list of public and private ways around the island. But as far as I know, there's still no definitive map that shows which ones are public and which ones are private. We do have separate lists of those maps. And well, maybe we can verify those as our next project.
Alan?
Yes.
Jeff, in his presentation, made what I would call almost a throwaway line, except that I thought it was immensely important. He said that the town was approaching state government, basically Mass DEP, Department of Environmental Protection, to see what role we could play locally on Chapter 91. He didn't expand on that. He didn't tell us what he thought might be the role. But I really think that that's an opener for you in particular and the committee in general to keep in touch with Jeff. How can we help? Do you need somebody to lobby? Apologies for my clock. There we go. does he need for us to intercede, for example, with Dylan Fernandez and Julian Sir? I have 2 clocks.
Yeah, that's a good point. Rick and I have been in touch with Jeff as far as engaging him, trying to get information about the existing licenses, and also, what do you do about properties that don't have a license that probably should? Anyway, yeah. So I think Jeff Carlson definitely will be an asset as we develop this. I think he's sort of come around. He sees that we're not up to anything untoward. So yes, Ed.
You're on mute, Ed.
Apologies. A couple of things. One thing on the public versus private roads. I mean, we want to get to a point where people can call, not have to show up at our meetings, but actually can call someone at the town even, and there's and find out it's like what's a taken road or a not taken road, something like that. So that's that point. And the other thing is Chapter 91. I think we should have a priority area, and I would suggest a priority area based on land bank acquisitions, et cetera, is figuring out how to go from Brant Point Lighthouse to the Hayes property at the Rotary, and what along that arc needs licenses. I mean, because I think that's the future, and that ties into that the path we had, the harbor path, and everything else. I mean, obviously, there's Chapter 91 licenses in many other areas, but that would be a priority area, I would think, to kind of focus on, perhaps.
That's a good idea. I was reading our, which plan was it? One of the plans that we had submitted years ago to the select board, and there was a reference in there to the Harbor Walk. This is a project that goes back quite a ways.
If you recall, Alan, Remain put some money into a consultant on that.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was just going to mention, that they drew maps. They had engineers go along to show what parcels and what needed to be done, that sort of thing. So the Harbor Walk is, I think that would be a great place to get started, particularly with all the work that's ahead with the coastal resistance plan. I had the pleasure of attending that meeting last Monday, and there's a lot of work going into this, a lot of planning that's going into this, and this, of course, is going to have a major impact on the work that we're doing. I mean, in terms of maps and coastlines and so on. But again, we're looking down the road. But I think that's another reason why this map could be so important, because it will show a lot of this basic data. Yes, Ed?
So with the overlay of the coastal resiliency, should we be looking for access points off of places like North Water Street and things like that, rather than closer to the harbor right now? I mean, for the future?
Well, I think where we want to start, is where we are right now. Where in the year 2022, where are the public access points around the island? And they're already changing. I mean, I was down on the South Shore about a month ago, and I said, "Wow!" So it's constantly in flux. So once we get the map that we've been discussing today in place, we'll have a record of where all these locations are, and it'll be a lot easier for future committee members to go and verify. Yes, Lee?
No, sorry, just scratching.
Sorry. Okay.
All right. Watch out. Don't go to an Osona auction and scratch your forehead.
Exactly. Okay, is there anything else to come before the committee this afternoon?
Yeah, Bill Greeter was just asking me if I could send him that thing that I was referring to with all the pictures. And I can't find it in my files. And Lee, did you say it's on our website, or could you just, somebody send it around if they have?
No, it's on the website.
Bill, did you look on the website?
Yeah, I was looking at it, but I couldn't, what's it entitled, Lee? I couldn't find, the maps are there, but I don't see a definitive list.
Okay, hang on, guys. I think you can still hear me. I am looking up. I'm going the wrong place. Now I'm coming to the right place, which is the town's website. And then government, boards, commissions, and committees. We are a committee. Roads and right-of-way. And way down at the bottom, okay, I'm pulling something up. It's called Master Chart Summary, and it's on our website. It's taking a while to load. Okay, this is just to start. This is not the full thing, but if you'll bear with me. I'm trying to get back.
Nathan?
Once Lee's done, I got one more thing.
Did you say it was at the bottom of the front page of the?
Yes, it is. And I can't get my screen back up.
What was it? It was called Master Chat.
Master Chart Summary or Master Chart.
All right, Rick?
Alan, I just suggest we email the link when Lee gets it, and that'll take care of that time frame.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
have a
good.
couple of things back up, but I think Nathan had his hand up for another item.
Not to heap more on your plate. But I have had some requests of late as things go along for we have the road ownership map that's up on the town's website under the GIS. I've made changes here and there, but the last time there was sort of a major update done to it was about 2012. And I would love to cut up the island into tiny little pieces so that you can go through and double check. Do I have the right road name and do I have the right person that's in charge of it? I do have some roads that are just marked as unknown because I'm unsure. So again, not to heap something on your plate, but I heard Ed mention something about the road ownership stuff. At some point when you guys are ready to work on that kind of a project, I would be happy to provide sections of the island to sort of winnow away at it and get stuff updated as much as we can.
Excellent. Good. Yeah, I remember we started this a couple of years ago.
And then COVID hit.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing the screen, but this is the short summary. And yes, I know it says June 2012. I'll work on this to make sure that it's fairly current. And next step is to stop sharing. And we're back.
Okay, so yes, Rick?
I had wanted to go back on two things from sort of prior meeting discussions to suggest an update or get a comment. One was our Chapter 91 memo to the select board. And some of you may have watched a couple of weeks ago when Dylan Fernandez brought that up to our local select board and made his comments on how he felt about that Bill to add the word recreation. I didn't know if we had heard back formally, Alan, or from the select board, or do we want to ask them for an agenda item to make sure it's discussed and publicly noticed?
I did check with Erica. This was at least a week or probably a couple of weeks ago. And at that point, she said that it had been presented to the select board and they haven't taken any action on it, but that the select board did receive it. And that's what I know. I'll follow up with Erica, see if there's anything.
You know, my sense is a majority of Nantucket voters are very much in favor of this kind of an article. And the select board, I think people would like to know where they stand. So I think it's important and just to see where we go. So that would be helpful.
Okay.
I had one other item, last fall, I think it was, we had talked about the ways from Baxter Road to the Bluff Walk and had asked about a number of those to see what had transpired with the authorization for taking those or negotiating away with the neighbors. And I don't think we ever got back a definitive answer on which ones have been completed and which ones haven't. So I'm hoping we can find a way to get that. It should be pretty straightforward. They have, or they're underway, or they haven't been. So that would be helpful.
Okay. I did speak with Andrew Force. This was a while ago. And I asked him for two things. I asked him if there was a list of the public access points. I asked him if there was a list of the One Big Beach easements, and there was another list that I was looking for. And he said that no, that those lists wasn't exist for. I'll follow up to see about the which ways were taken. I'm just trying to think. I just saw a report or something. Anyway,
Alan, I'll send you a copy of the original town meeting authorizations on those.
right.
And then once they're authorized for the board to act or choose not to, they stand until they're rescinded. So they're still available.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right.
Alan,
I'll follow up on that. Yes, Snooky?
a lot of those right-of-ways on Baxter Road were originally put in when that was subdivided by Mr. Flagg back in the 1890s, and they would be in the land court records.
Originally.
You're right. Yeah, exactly. I've seen the papers of the deed from Flagg to spelling that out. So, all right, good point. All right, anything else to come before the committee this afternoon?
I just sent to everyone, Alan, while we were talking, the document I was referring to. I found it in my folders, so everybody has it now.
Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you. Good.
Rob, yours kicked back saying that you were out of the office, so.
Yeah, I'm not in the office.
Just to FYI, that list that's on the website is different from the list that Phil just sent out. I just sent a link for the list that's on the website. So it's two different versions. The one that Phil sent has pictures in Latin long, and the one that's on the website is just a cumulative list.
Okay.
So you should have both.
Which probably don't agree.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah, I know. It's like the, exactly. Okay, anything else to come before the committee this afternoon? Okay, I declare we're at the end of our agenda and the meeting is adjourned.
Thank
So-
you all.
Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Thank you all
Bye-bye.
very much. And I will follow up with my list of things here to do. And
And when you're done, Alan, I'm gonna stop the recording.
okay, all set. Thank you.
Bye-bye all.